Hi. Today I thought I could talk about. I ended up doing a ceremony last weekend, and during the ceremony, I kind of felt and also saw like some pretty profound truths about the universe. And during this ceremony, what I kind of experienced was I just felt and saw like the neutrality of the universe and how the universe really is just deep neutrality, and whatever you are putting into the universe is what gets amplified. And it really got me thinking about like what we experience in our life. And there's always a caveat when you talk about like, oh, like you've created your reality. As some people and you know a lot of people are dealt kind of hard decks, are dealt. Maybe they're a flower growing in a garden, but the garden has a lot of poison in the soil or a lot of heavy metals, and so it kind of can lead the flower, or maybe the person tending and caring for the flower just isn't a very good gardener and isn't very good at making sure that the flower has what it needs to grow or has the water it needs to grow, or good at making sure the flower is in a good place of sunlight for it really to be the most beautiful flower it can be. And even, if we think about the flower as a child, maybe our parents had a tendency to kind of force what they thought would be a good life onto us rather than cultivating or helping us build the skills that we're actually the most naturally gifted at, because everyone has natural gifts. But and that's something, my parents did an okay job, but my dad especially definitely had a little bit of a tendency to try and get me to play the sports, or get me to do the activities that he loved, rather than becoming curious about what activities did I like to play the most, or what activities did I feel the most passionate about, which led me to necessarily playing sports that I didn't really want to play, but I was just playing to like kind of appease my dad. And so thinking about like, okay, yes, we do create our, especially like the vision I was given last week. It's like, okay, whatever I'm putting into the universe is what I'm getting back out. But also that what I was given growing up can sometimes, it's almost like if we're a tree, sometimes like the patterns our parents didn't clean up or didn't resolve for us, like maybe we had really codependent parents, or we had parents who struggled with addiction or struggled with feeling certain emotions, and then we can think of that as almost like pesticides or heavy metals in the soil of the tree that we now are. And so we might grow poisonous fruit, or grow fruit that are deformed or aren't the most beautiful thing, right? Rather, that's like, and we can think about fruit just as experiences. Maybe that's, we created a life we actually don't really like to live, or we've found a lot of toxic relationships in our adulthood, or just are unhappy or miserable with life. And recognizing that isn't necessarily on you, right? You just had a lot to clean up, or you had a lot of dirty, you had a lot of toxicity in the soil, that, and we're not taught how to face that or how to heal that growing up. And so we don't need to feel bad about the toxic relationships we've had, or how we've built a life around a career that really isn't fulfilling to us at all. It's just start to become aware of, I might need to start to face my patterns. I might start to really face how I've been searching for relationships from a place of unworthiness, right? Always searching for a partner, or as a way of trying to, because we don't feel enough as we are. And so when we don't feel enough as we are always searching for someone else. And really what we're searching for when you're searching for someone else is, like the true meaning of a relationship is it's supposed to amplify you and all your greatest qualities. The person who we're in a romantic relationship with is meant to amplify and bring out all our greatest qualities more often than not. And so, but you can think about, if I'm searching for a romantic relationship, what I'm really searching for is just being more of myself. And it's beautiful to want to experience that more with another person, but the deeper desire of any romantic relationship is just to feel more as you are. And we have just been taught that if you find someone, they'll do that for you, but in truth you can't really be fully yourself as you are and then have a relationship that amplifies it if you don't find that first. Most of the time, right? It's a little bit hard to talk across the board, but most of the time we're going to be better off working, spending a little bit more time alone and building friendships and prioritizing really trying to be more of ourselves in moments that is actually going to be the being ourself, or be the wholeness that will then attract deeper, more meaningful relationships in our life. And a lot of times people kind of go about that backwards, which it's okay, because that's what we were taught. That's kind of one of the poisons or heavy metals or pesticides in the soil that pretty much everyone has grown up with. And recognizing that life really isn't a journey about what you achieve, but it's a journey about how much can I be myself, how much can I express myself, and even be like a little wild, but in a way that feels really freeing, in a way that feels like, oh, I don't need to hold myself back around people because I'm afraid of what they're going to think about me. And that doesn't mean we're mean to people, and that doesn't mean that we do things that are chaotic and dramatic, but it just, like, oftentimes your greatest joy is going to be your greatest self-expression. And so it's just being a little bit more playful in our day to day, and also just like playing with other people, like children, like making jokes and having fun. And oftentimes that was seen as too much for the people that raised us, and so we don't play as much as we really should. Or right, eventually we're told it's time to be adults, and so we stop playing, and it's actually what kills our joy and kills um, the expression of being more of ourselves. And so when I was in the ceremony and kind of feeling the neutrality and seeing the neutrality of the universe, another thing I realized is any type of goals, worries, fears that I had were gone. And I was just sitting in empty spaciousness of this neutral experience. And I realized whatever mantra I was chanting, I could then see how that's what was amplified, or what the universe grew within me, and what was within you is kind of like a reflection of your outside of experience to some degree. And also, like, sometimes the reflection of our outside experience is just a little bit of the past that we are here to kind of be different than. And that, so, we don't have to always blame all the problems of the world as something messed up inside of me, right? I might be a light of unity, bringing that to a bunch of people, or a company that might be still stuck in an outdated system of how it runs, or still stuck in a lot of separation or judgment, or thinking that things that are different than how they are is scary, or an attack onto their identity. Because when people are different and we find safety and familiar, we then attack anything that is different than us. And so recognizing that if your goals, fears, worries, everything about your life, if the universe really is just neutral, then what you are afraid of, or what you worry about, or what you hope, or your goals you have, are is the story you're narrating for your life. And recognizing that if I want to live a different life, one, I have to work on facing and acknowledging the patterns of codependency, of people pleasing, of addiction, of the way I avoid my emotions, of the things I do that are harmful to myself or others, that I was just raised with and was taught was normal, when really it's quite toxic. And there's so many things in society that we're taught as healthy, or we're taught is okay, that is actually quite toxic. A simple thing would be alcohol, or a simple thing would be having like really loose casual sex with a bunch of different people, and it's okay if we do that, right? We don't need to feel bad or beat ourselves up more, because that's just going to perpetuate toxicity. Anytime you are hard on yourself, you usually are replaying the way your parents or the way people who raised you or who were a mentor or authority figure in your life made you feel like kind of hurt you by being overly harsh. And then we're overly harsh on ourselves, thinking we're holding ourselves accountable, but oftentimes what people are really starving for on this planet is softness, gentleness, kindness, love. And we really don't need to be so hard on ourselves so often. And that doesn't mean we don't own when we mess up, or we don't own when we think we could do things better, but we don't really need to ruminate on that so much as oftentimes how much people actually do. And if we could just take the parts of ourselves that think we suck or are a loser or don't think we did things good enough, and took it as a reason to still share our gifts, still share more of ourselves, still share what we create, even if we think it's not good enough for to have a large audience, and still share it anyways, because the only way to actually get better at something and to be motivated to continue to create new things is to share it. And loving the part of ourselves that thinks it's not good enough, and really loving the part of ourselves that thinks we're not good enough, or that we suck, or that we're awful, because we don't need to feel that way. And that's just the past leaking into our current experience. And so I just want to hit on this really quickly, that the mirror teaching, right? People will say that my internal is why the external is happening, right? If someone's shitty to me, or angry or aggressive, that must mean there's anger or aggression or shittiness that's unresolved in me. And I don't actually believe that's true. What I believe is, like, we might have done a lot of healing work. We might have been really focused on being kind and loving and respectful and gentle to other people. And we could almost think we're starting to embody unity. We're starting to embody perspectives of the life within me is the life within all bodies. And so I treat others how I would want to be treated. And I'm kind and respectful and caring to others, because I know even if they're not the nicest, right, that's me just having a hard day in a different body. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that that your internal experience is why other people are not nice to you, or why other people might be angry and aggressive, but you might be a flame of unity that is working to bring unifying, or bringing kindness, softness, and gentleness to people who might have just forgotten that a little bit more, or still stuck in the past of harshness, aggressiveness, survival, a little more than you. And they're how other people are relating to you says all about them, and it actually says nothing about you. Even if someone said, I have a problem with you, right, they only have a problem with you because of the ideas, or how you represent yourself, how that's problematic to them. And it actually has nothing to do with you, right? Every person you relate to outside of you is how you relate to aspects of yourself. Even if you're like, I'm straight, and you secretly judge gay people, or think gay people shouldn't be married, how whatever that represents outside of you then is how you judge or try and deny aspects of yourself that maybe are more fluid, or more different than how maybe all of our culture would accept. And so whatever you are judging outside of you is something you also judge within you, or an aspect of you that you push away, deny, and try and protect. And I really believe when it comes to sexual orientation, everyone's sexual orientation is a hell of a lot more fluid than we really would like to admit. And humans are 70 to 80% water, and our labels and identities really should be held a lot more gently and with a lot more fluidity than I think oftentimes they are. But to bring it back, okay, so if the universe is neutral and the universe amplifies whatever you are putting into the universe, and we're narrating our experience, right? It becomes important. I heard Lee Harris, he was talking about the other on Instagram, he was talking about it's really important to talk to the universe and to tell the universe what you want and why you want it regularly, and recognizing that the universe is conscious, so it's never going to help you. You can create unconsciousness with your actions, but you're not necessarily going to manifest unconscious experiences most of the time, just by thinking about them. I think, sometimes if we're really afraid of something happening, there can be there either could be an intuitive hit we're getting that maybe if we're really afraid of something happening, that could be our intuition saying this could happen, right? There, in every moment there's infinite possibilities, and the fear of something actually happening, right? Maybe we're afraid of our boyfriend like getting drunk and taking advantage of us while we're sleeping or something like that. That's a random example, but the truth is maybe our boyfriend has that tendency and we only have that fear with that person because that's our intuition actually trying to warn us, hey, this person isn't actually as safe as you think they are, or this job opportunity you're in, there's some things that are not as safe for you as you might hope, and that's why you're experiencing fear around it. That's a possibility. And also recognizing, sometimes if we live in fear of something, there can sometimes be, it's not necessarily a for sure destined it's going to happen, but there can be a tendency of it then happening as the universe trying to free you from the fear you have of that experience. And something I do in my life, if I have a disturbing thought or I'm afraid of something happen, I just say, angels, please heal that for me. Angels, please collapse that timeline because for me, and make sure that doesn't happen. Because if the universe really is neutral and you're the creator, right? If you're constantly on focusing on how you're afraid of something happening, you're actually growing sometimes the possibility of that actually happening if you're really focusing on that probably for years and years and years. And while like the things we want to grow are going to grow a lot more easily when they're conscious rather than unconscious, your thoughts are energy and they do have a very subtle light influence. But most of the time, even if you just said, angels, please heal that for me, or only the divine could think something like that, or only the divine could be afraid of that, you're kind of like leveling that thought or fear into a higher expression of itself, where the weight or density has a less of a potential of grounding into reality. And I bring all this up because something I do have experience with when trying to create unconsciously was through fantasies, through sexual fantasies. And when I used pornography, and long after I stopped using pornography, kind of the thing that really lingered and left real residue in my mind was the sexual fantasies, and just constantly thinking about having sex with anyone I really found that was attractive. And after I stopped using porn, I would have experiences where I wouldn't even be aroused or horny, and it felt like my mind would just go into a portal of I would just get lost in thinking about having sex with someone, and I would come out of it 20, 30 minutes later and be like, oh fuck, like I just lost 30 minutes and I wasn't even aroused. And that was an experience I experienced for many years, until I learned to say I love you fantasies and thank you fantasies, because unconsciousness can only exist when we push it away. And if we welcome it and embrace it, that unconsciousness gets actually up leveled to something that's conscious. And for me now, when I have sexual fantasies, it usually just means my hormones are spiking a little bit and I might need to masturbate or whatever. But yeah, and so when I used to have sexual fantasies a lot, like probably more than most people, when I was like pouring, when I was using porn and pouring a lot of energy into creating that pattern of sexual fantasies. And then after porn, and still experiencing sexual fantasies pretty strongly because how long I spent focusing and creating thought patterns of fantasies when I was using porn. Um, what I realized is that most of the time nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. The people I thought about having sex with never had sex with. Because if you're thinking about someone and never actually taking action steps, right? Most of the time you're not going to create that in your reality. And the only time I ever really felt like my sexual fantasies like made any type of difference in my relationships is, I think some people could perceive, like, maybe not everyone is intuitive or psychic, but most people are. And I think sometimes when people just wanted to be friends with me and I was thinking about having sex with them, maybe the way I looked at them, but also maybe just they could feel the energetics of that, and it kind of pushed people away or made people not feel as safe with me or not want to get to know me, which kind of sucked. And didn't probably lead to me having relationships with people, or even people I would have wanted to be friends with, but didn't really have control over how I fantasized about having sex with people, kind of pushed people away. And then there was like another category where I think if someone was interested in me and I was having sexual fantasies about them, that if there was a Luke, if we were both interested in each other, it did seem like they also could pick up the sexual fantasies and realize that I was attracted to them or that I desired them, and but recognizing, right, it's only really going to have an impact depending on if someone actually wants to have sex with you, right? And then they'll perceive that and recognize, oh, this person would be interested in that with me. And so, but it really is a whole waste of energy, and it's not, and it would be much better to actually just take action steps than it would to be constantly lost in your thoughts about whether someone is going to hook up with you or not. And it really isn't the most conscious way to connect with people either. And I've been thinking about this for a while, and I might just make a little reel short on Instagram about it at some point, but it's like you really never need to date people. And I kind of feel like, and I've said this before, but you kind of, dating people is kind of like skipping a step. Like if we just focused on building friendships and getting to know people, you would always know if you wanted a deeper relationship with people or not. And we try and skip over that and just move right into a romantic relationship with someone because we have a hard time taking things slow, or we have a pattern of overconsumption, or we feel not enough as we are, and we only think we're going to be completed with another person. And I get it. Like, it's nice to cuddle with people, it's nice to have physical touch. There isn't a lot of places, unless we're someone that dances with other people or go to cuddle parties or gets massages regularly, or that we can experience physical touch a lot of the times. And I think that's part of the reason why people are so into casual hookups and also constantly trying to find a partner, is we're all just a little bit starving for touch. And I'm definitely there too. And I definitely feel like I probably like physical touch a little bit more than a lot of people. And so we don't need to feel bad about the patterns we've had, but it is something to be aware of. Is if I just got to know people as friends, I would always know if it was meant to be a romantic, and really let go of my desires to dating people and just got to know people. Like if you just were like, I'm just going to be everyone's friend, no matter how hot or attractive they are or interested in me, and I did that for 2 to 3 months, you would, before even thinking about it being more than friendship, and I spent regular time with those people, you would always see them clearly, and you would always know if it was a relationship you should lean deeper into or a relationship you should pull back from. And sometimes when we don't feel discerning in relationships, it's because we haven't taken enough time to know ourselves. We haven't figured out what we're really passionate about or what we really value in our life, whether that's creative expression, whether that's a deep knowing of spirituality, or whether that's really being healed, whole, and centered in ourselves. And if we haven't figured out what really lights us up about life, it can be a lot harder to know what kind of relationship would serve us in a romantic lens, which is really what the deepest relationship you have should be your romantic partner. And if we have friends who meet us deeper than a romantic partner, right, maybe we've known those friends longer, but it's also something to be curious about. Of maybe I'm settling for this romantic partner because I have a hard time being alone. And maybe if I got spent some more time alone, I would actually get to know who I really was. And I'd actually really start to learn how to love myself. And I'd also start to learn what I'm passionate about, because I would just have more free time. And then I could find someone who also is passionate about, has that same greatest passion as me. And we could amplify that for each other. And so bringing it back to thinking about the universe and thinking about how the universe is neutral, and we narrate our story, the first step and it's why it's kind of important to be alone, is to start to clean up the soil of whatever was left with us wherever we're growing, right? Which means cleaning up my codependency, keep cleaning up my people pleasing, cleaning up my addictions, cleaning up the ways I'm like my parents that don't really serve me that well. And I really believe that's one of the simplest ways for ancestral healing, is just look at, how am I like my parents? How am I like my ancestors? That isn't the best way to go about life, or that is kind of toxic. A really gentle and simple example for me is my mom has a tendency to binge clean. Kind of cleaning is she used to work more. She still works a fair amount, but she used to work a lot more, and would kind of binge clean on Sunday, or anytime we had a house party or a guest coming over, would binge clean the whole apartment. And I totally do the same thing. Whenever I'm having someone come over, or whenever I go to clean my apartment, I deeply clean the whole thing, and then I won't clean it again for another 2 weeks. And right, it would be a lot more healthy for me to do a little cleaning every day rather than binge cleaning every 2 weeks, and then my apartment's a mess for a full week. And recognizing, if we want to heal the past, we just have to become different than the past, right? The ways that are kind of dysfunctional that we were taught were normal, just do the opposite of that. And I don't know if my cleaning habits will change anytime soon, because it's not the biggest deal. But if we really want to be different than how our parents hurt us, right, just become different from them. Live life in a more balanced way, right? Clean every day. If they were people that never brushed their teeth well, or weren't into flossing, become someone who really takes good care of their teeth and flosses regularly. If they're someone who didn't eat a healthy diet, eat a really healthy diet with a lot of fruits and vegetables. And all the ways we become different from the people we hurt us is the ways we then start embodying consciousness and care that is opposite from the pain that we were given growing up. And when we become the opposite of pain is when we're healed and whole. And when we're aligning more with a future of world peace, free energy, of intentional communities, of healthy, clean food that doesn't have a bunch of bug spray on it, then we are aligning with the separation, the judgment, the ways we feel superior or inferior to others, or the ways that people put their worth and value in how much money they have. And so really all you have to do to heal your ancestral lineage, and to also become the and also become a future that is full of heaven, or full of golden energy, is just do the opposite of your ancestors. Do the opposite of the ways your parents were crazy, or do the opposite of the way your ancestors lived that made you go, they're fucking off the rocker for living like that. And if you can do that, you are going to start to embody consciousness that is different than what the world has seen up until this point. And and it's like the ways you're hurt become the greatest, when we start to orient towards growth, become the greatest fuel to be different than how we were hurt, right? If people were really, like, I experienced a lot of teasing growing up. Like, I didn't really get beat up so much in high school and stuff, but people made fun of me a shit ton. Like I remember a freshman baseball coach, I was on the freshman baseball team, like was concerned about how much shit I was taking or how much I was being teased by the other teammates. Right. And I'm someone now that I never tease people. I'm always, as to the greatest of my ability, I'm kind and respectful, and I try and speak from a place of always respecting others, and never making someone, never putting down someone, even in a teasing or lighthearted way, but always leading with, if I'm going to be lighthearted with someone, it's going to bring them up, or it's going to encourage them or help them see how more of amazing they are, rather than make them feel bad about themselves, even if it is lighthearted. And something I feel really passionate about, honestly. And so really to start to think about, okay, I have to start to look at the soil of what kind of soil I was given for the tree that I am, and what kind of fruits that's going to lead me to grow. And if I can clean up the soil, or can clean up my limiting beliefs about myself, or clean up the trauma I survived by just being opposite of hurt, by embodying greater care for myself, or talking to myself not how the people that raised me hurt me, but from a really soft, loving, encouraging, and praising way, and taking any type of negative voice in my head as something to love and tell it, I love you and I see you. Thank you for the part of me that thinks I suck. I fucking love you. I'm so grateful for the reminder of what I've healed and am still being continued to heal from. Thank you for showing me the words that people said that really hurt me in the past, and being a reminder of how I can be different from that, right? When we treat it with respect, unconsciousness dies. Unconsciousness cannot live in a place that is not, in a place that is respectful, right? When we are embodying joy, the things that killed joy for us, whether that was hurt, harm, mistreatment, slowly become smaller and smaller spaces within our internal space, by our willingness to be opposite and different and expressive and kind and respectful from the past we have come from. And when we do that, it is like someone coming through the soil underneath the tree and pulling out all the heavy metals, or pesticides, or planting mushrooms all around the tree that soaks up those heavy metals and pesticides out of our soil. And it's really the most simple and also most effective way, I would say, to heal, where you don't even need a practitioner. And sometimes practitioners are nice and they can show us things we don't want to look at, but you also can do a lot on your own. And I want to, and so when we're thinking about neutrality and thinking about trying to grow awesome fruits that are delicious and awesome, okay, it's like making sure I'm putting good nutrition into the soil, whether that's caring for my body well, whether that's becoming like and when we care for ourselves well, we become like someone who's good at caring for others. And then when we prioritize joy, we actually find, like when I talked about fantasies, if you focus on fantasies, you create fantasies and you fall into fantasies really easily. If you focus on joy and spend all day playing your guitar, or dancing or laughing with friends, right, you start to fall into joy and happiness rather easily. And you start to create a new slide for you to ride down, that your body just naturally starts to slide down all day, every day, because it's an easy path you've cleared when you walk it regularly. And so recognizing that if we want to grow great fruits in our life, it's being mindful of where are my choices coming from, and am I expressing playfulness, joy, love regularly? And I literally can just say I love you to whoever, and that would be harmonizing my body, harmonizing the universe within me with greater love, that then would create more love in my life. And it really is that simple. Or saying, hey, I really enjoy spending time with you. That's focusing on joy, which creates more joy for you, and also creates more joy for the person who just heard those words. And we can subtly very start to, I don't want to use the word manipulate, but like start to plug in the nutrients into our soil that's going to grow awesome fruits for our life, and start to narrate the story a little differently. Like, maybe we've had a hard time getting a job, but that doesn't have to be the story we continue to live out. And we could say, I've had a hard time getting a job in the past, but I know it's only going to get easier and easier, right? That's narrating a different story. And if you say that regularly enough, that will start to be what's created in your life. And the things that most powerfully create a different experience for you, first, is choices. And are you choosing from fear, or are you choosing from love? Are you choosing from joy, or are you choosing from a place of control, manipulation, and clinginess, or codependency, or lack? And it's okay if we choose from that every now and then. It's not about being perfect, and it's not about never doing that. And like I said about fear sometimes is a message of intuition of, maybe this person isn't as safe as I think, or maybe this career isn't as safe as I think. And sometimes we might be in fear because the thing we're thinking about doing is actually dangerous. And sometimes it could just be the ways that we feel insecure, or feel like the world isn't safe, that's making us afraid. And really, if we explored it, we'd realize the world's way more safe than we expected, especially when we're narrating a story of safety, right? If we told ourselves everything will be okay and everything will work out, that's now the story you're narrating. And if you say that often enough, that's the life you're going to live. Everything will be okay and everything will work out. Even when it feels not okay, I know everything will be okay, right? And if we can work to, right, if the universe is neutral, we have to, the universe is conscious, and we want to create conscious things in our life, we have to tell the universe what we want, and we have to give it a conscious reason why. And this is what Lee Harris was teaching. Like, I was on Instagram, I heard him say this yesterday. But I think it's really true. And your guides can only bring you things when you ask for it. And if you get, and also it's usually a good thing to tell them why you desire that, right? Something I've been praying for is like, universe, please help my YouTube channel become incredibly popular and successful, so I may heal and help more people, right? Then I'm showing the universe that's coming from a pure place of service. And if I say, and the thought is, if I ask for that regularly enough, that will be the reality that's created for me. Because the universe is an algorithm. If it just amplifies the stories you're running. And so the first biggest thing is choices, and for the most part, trying to choose from a place of openness, of curiosity, of love, of gentleness, of joy, of expression more often. The second would be words. How do I speak to myself? How I speak to myself is how I'm going to speak to others. How I judge myself is how I judge others, or how I judge others is how I judge myself. How I'm harsh or cut people out of the blue in my life is then how I can be harsh and cut myself with my words. Oof. And so working to love the parts of ourselves that are harsh, rather than thinking that can't be happening, it needs to stop, right? Going to love the part of me that's harsh. Or if we have experienced dark entities or demons, they can only exist, right? Just like unconscious sexual fantasies, they can only exist when we're not showing them love, when we're not respectful toward them, we're not honoring their experience of pain. And when we honor their experience of pain, they transform from a demon or dark entity to a hurt inner child, and eventually, as we love them deeper, they turn into a conscious expression of thought, or a conscious expression of whatever the opposite of that sexual fantasy would be, or whatever the opposite of that darkness, demon, or dark entity would be. And the third thing that has the lightest influence on our experience would be your beliefs and your thoughts about yourself, and they really only influence you when you listen to them. And I also heard Bashar talk about that when we feel doubt, worry, fear, anxiety, sometimes that's us running our essence, which you could think of as truth or neutrality or love, whatever you think your deepest component of energy, of just neutral yourself energy. When we're running that through a belief system that is opposite from the truth of our soul, is when we feel fear, doubt, worry, anxiety. And it's something really interesting is like I was feeling a little anxiety and fear and worry yesterday. And I was thinking about how things might not be okay in the future, or how I might need to make changes. And I might, but what I was recognizing was that actually isn't the truth. The truth is everything will be okay. The universe is always supporting your highest good. The universe is always giving you experiences that are serving some way, shape, or form your highest good. Doesn't mean we tolerate mistreatment. Doesn't mean we tolerate abuse, right? People we probably need to actually set a hard boundary with and move away from, especially when that happens more than happens a couple of times in a row or fairly often. But recognizing that the universe is always serving your highest good, everything will be okay. Even if you're going through hardship, it's helping you wake up out of victimhood and powerlessness and start to really step in, taking action steps that are going to bring solutions to the problems you're going through. And so the fear, worry, doubt, anxiety for me was a sign of, oh, I'm afraid about the future, but it's really an unknown, and everything will be okay. And it's something to be curious about. Of I might need to make changes, but me being afraid of that or worrying about that isn't really serving anything. And if essence, it's me pouring energy that could be poured into the vitality or health or joy of what it is to be alive, the joy of life. And when I acknowledged that, some of the fear and worry went away. And I also just said, like, like only the divine could be in this fear and worry, and that helps up level it to a higher expression of itself. Or you could just say, angels, help me feel more of the joy within my heart rather than this fear and worry, even though, or help heal some of this patterning I'm feeling of fear and worry. All that would like essentially help you move out of that pattern effortlessly. Um, and so thinking about, okay, whatever I'm putting in to the neutral experience, whether I'm choosing from fear, whether I'm speaking from fear, whether I'm choosing from joy or speaking from joy, is what the universe is going to amplify. And if I can choose joy more regularly, I'm going to have an easier time just falling into joy, and I'm going to, what like attracts like, and I'll start to attract greater joy within my life. And even like abundance attracts abundance. And if I start to point out everything that all the ways I'm an abundant, it can have subtle influence of helping attract greater abundance or success to me by how I focus on how successful I am, or how much, or all the ways I do have abundance in my life right now, right? Maybe I don't have a lot of things, but I have an abundance of time. And if we focus on that regularly enough, we're now harmonizing our body and our universe that lives within us to an energy of abundance that can naturally attract abundance to us a little bit easier. And that also, it also means you still need to take action steps, and you need to take steps forward that is going to help create success in your life, or going to help create abundance in your life. You need both. So most of the time. And a word that came to me kind of through in this ceremony right afterwards was harmonic resonance. And it's actually really interesting because I was given that word like on Sunday, and I haven't heard it before. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, I was listening to Lee Harris and Amelia Ortiz podcast. It just came out, and Lee was channeling his guides, and he also used the word harmonic resonance. And he talked about how, if you think about us like a spider web, I'm going to paraphrase, this isn't what he said, but essentially what he said. If you think about you as a spider web, there's going to be certain people who are maybe more closely woven to you, or close to you on the spider web, than other people. And some of those people might be friends or family, and some of those people might be members of your soul tribe or soul family or your soulmate, or people who you haven't met yet, and recognizing that the harmonic resonance you hold, other people also are holding. And it's like the frequency of how much love, divinity, joy you embody, and whatever place you're at, the people who are matching that with you, are also who are matching your harmonic resonance, are going to be going through the same levels of struggle and also the same levels of joy and grace in their life as you. And it was something that really interesting. And also, for me, what I was thinking about with harmonic resonance is just everything is a harmonic. And you can start to hear people's harmonic resonance when you are starting to open up a little bit to your intuition in their voice. And you can start to pick up information about people. And it's always good to double check that information we get and get to know them, just by how they talk, and just how they say words, because everything is resonance. Your choices have a resonance. Your words and actions have a resonance. Your thoughts have a resonance. And, it's when we're listening to people channel, we're just listening to a deeper resonance or resonance more aligned with truth than that they can access, but maybe don't always live as. Like for me, like in this state of channeling, right, I feel like I access just a little bit more of my presence, or a little bit more of truth or intuition than I typically feel in my day to day. And every time you channel, you're resonating yourself to a higher octave of harmonic resonance. And it's a good reason to channel. It's a good reason to tap into your creativity, your joy, to express yourself, because you're actually just connecting with your true self, and you're actually just raising your harmonic resonance that can start to bring inspired solutions into your life that might be a little out of the ordinary, or might be something you wouldn't typically consider. But when we're in an experience of joy, we can follow things that might feel a little strange or might feel like they might not work, but are actually the perfect solution to whatever we're going through. You can, a good example of this is like Mahatma Gandhi, and I don't know his story super well, but he like walked 300 miles, like, or something, I just made up the miles, but he walked across India to like the salt fields, and it was like started essentially India's push for independence, right? And most people wouldn't think that that would be a good way to start, to get people riled up to fight for independence, but it turned out being, like, from what I remember about the story, the perfect way to do it. And so when you're in a higher harmonic resonance, you're just a little bit more open to impressions, and you're going to be maybe given solutions that don't always feel like they, if we thought about them too much, we might think that won't work. But in truth, it's like the perfect step to take, to actually, and you're getting it from your true self, or your soul that knows the path you're walking. And so it's important when we're thinking about resonance, is the more time I spend in joy, the more time I spend loving myself, caring for myself, I'm actually raising my harmonic resonance, and I'm uplifting my friends and family, and also people I've never even met yet, who are closely intertwined with my existence on a soul level. And even if I fall down or slip up, right? Hopefully, the harmonic resonance of the people I'm connected to will help bring me back up. And it's also something to know. Maybe we're born into a family with a lot of unconsciousness. And so we really are struggling, right? Struggling to heal or become different. We might have been given a big weight, right next to the center point of the web that we are, that is kind of, it was meant to be challenging. It was meant to create a lot of struggle for us. But as we overcome it, there's so many gifts on the other side. And it's the real gift of pain, is like when you heal from pain, you start to become a lot more invincible and strong and courageous. And I brought up harmonic resonance because I want to hit that, like, there might be some things we're really good at, but there's always ways to grow. Like, growth is infinite, and even like there probably is a little bit of a cap of how much light you can hold in your body. But as you continue, right, eventually when you hit that cap, you just continue to evolve and grow as a spirit, or as a spirit guide, or as an angel, right? The path of enlightenment never ends. It goes into infinity. You never end up maxing out how much illumination or awareness or consciousness or service you could bring to yourself or other people, and how you serve yourself then becomes how you serve others. And eventually you move into merging back in with source, but so even source is ever expansion, ever constant growth and enlightenment. And so uh, there really isn't a limit to the level of illumination or light or service or consciousness you can have. And we come here to remember our mastery, to remember heaven on earth, and we do that just by being different from the people that raised us in all the ways they're neurotic, crazy, and kind of made us feel like shit. Then becomes our greatest fuel to do the opposite of us and become the most orderly, conscious, kind, loving, respectful, expressive, joyful. And as we do that, we're anchoring a new future for humanity as one person, and we're also uplifting the harmonic resonance of all the people we're connected to. And that doesn't mean we only focus on connecting with our angels and ignore any other areas of our life, because we're meant to be grounded. And the more grounded you are, the more you're actually able to anchor a new future into this earth, or new frequencies and energies onto this planet. And if we're only focusing on connecting with heaven, we're never actually in our body. And the body is the most important vehicle for ascension or for raising consciousness. And so really, and I believe if you broke up the word grounded, you would get the word G and round. And if you kind of swap those spaces, I really feel like groundedness is well-rounded growth and really embracing our humanness. And I really believe enlightenment is mastering our human experience. And once you master your human experience, it gives you opportunities to grow in different ways, or to start to embody like simultaneous life, and to pull more gifts from our simultaneous lives. But we first just have to master who we are. And we do that by being well rounded, which means I take time for expression, whether that's through dance, through music, through drawing. I take time to be focused and driven in creating the life I want to live. And I also take time to connect with others, and to have beautiful friendships, and to put myself out there, and recognizing, you probably aren't going to have better friends or make new friends if you never ask anyone to be your friend. And that's a trap that I definitely fall for. And trying to become less like is like, when we desire something, what would it be like to ask someone for it? If you desire having more friends in your life, maybe ask more people to be your friend. If you desire, lately, like recently, I went to a Paul Selledge channeling workshop, and I didn't have the money because I didn't start my job till this week. And I created a GoFundMe, and I asked people that are part of my community if they'd be willing to donate to help me go to this channeling workshop. And the ticket was only $400. I ended up raising $600. And so, yeah, there's always solutions if we're willing to lean into it and to ask for what we need. That's a big part of it. But looking at harmonic resonance, it's meant to be a rainbow. And I think we can have a tendency, if we're really good at joy and creative expression, to just pour all of our energy into joy and creative expression, and never want to focus on the things we're not good at. But really, your most efficient growth and the most exciting growth is going to be growing in areas that you're weak or not very good at. And, maybe we're really good at being stern and disciplined, but we're not very good at being soft and gentle. But when we step into that, that's actually what's going to be the balance. And that actually helps us bring out our sternness and discipline when we need it, and not always lead with that when it sometimes can come across as harsh to other people. Also, like, like maybe we're really good at care, kindness, gentleness, but we're not really good at being direct or honest with people. And then we have a child who's a little bit of a monster and is addicted to video games and runs all over us. And that child isn't necessarily showing you how you're a monster, but that child is showing you how you're not good at setting good boundaries with yourself, probably with your partner and with your little kid. And recognizing that being a good parent is sometimes telling people no when they need it. And something I've realized coming from addiction and coming from pornography addiction, especially when you stop using your substance of choice, there's going to be a probably a year or two period where you go, oh, like I feel a little off today. What if I just watched a little pornography? And that's like your inner child testing the boundaries of the parent. And the parent goes, that's nice, honey, but that wouldn't be serving you. Come on, let's go for a walk, or let's go eat a healthy meal. And holding yourself accountable, which is like the divine masculine. And harmonic resonance could also be, I'm really good at contemplation, but I'm not so good at action steps. And so then I live a life that's kind of lacking abundance and success because I'm constantly thinking about all the options I have, but I never take steps towards any of them. Or maybe I'm really good at taking steps and I've achieved a lot of material success, but I feel unfulfilled, or the things I've created didn't really last. And it starts to become, okay, I'm a lot more intentional about maybe who I choose for a romantic partnership, or I start to work towards a career that I know is going to bring me fulfillment or passion by how it helps others, or how it maybe even makes me feel good about the person I am by how I'm able to contribute to society by working in this career that I actually really enjoy. And so there's always areas to grow, and you're going to find way more wholeness and balance and harmony in your life by looking at the weak areas of your life and growing in those areas rather than only trying to grow in the areas you're good at. And really, mastery is when we fully have grown and become grown and adult in all areas of our life. And sometimes society doesn't always help us do that, right? Working a 9 to 5 takes up a lot of our frickin' time, but doing the best you can. And the more you embody and work to grow the parts of yourself that you aren't very good at, the more whole you will feel, the more masterful you will be in bringing forward the parts of yourself that you need when you need it, and being able to step in moments when you need it. Like for me, something is like sometimes when I'm in pain or contracted, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be in front of people. And something I've been learning to not listen to is to lean into the fear of being seen when I'm hurting and still be myself. And it's brought out more power and more bravery within me to do that rather than to listen to the fear of contraction of don't look at me. And so when we do that is where our empowerment is. And when we do that is when we're whole and balanced and we're grounded. And you can only embody heaven when you can ground it into your body. And that's what it takes, is being well rounded. And taking breaks from spirituality to be a human, because oftentimes your greatest lessons come from humanness, right? For me, like my greatest, like it hasn't been so much meditating. And a lot of people think, oh, if I meditate at the top of this mountain, that's going to be what's really going to make me a master. But it's actually how you apply the peace and harmony you found at the top of the mountain to your everyday life that actually makes you the most masterful, loving, kind. And for me, like I've focused on angelic frequencies for many years, a couple of years. And what actually helped wear out my triggers, or helped wear out the parts of myself that were immature, a little bit more reactive, was actually relationships I had in my life, like friendships. And when people triggered me and then me not handling it the best, it caused me to grow a lot more than if I just lived in meditation. And so it's something to look at, especially if I'm meditating a lot. It actually creates stagnancy in our field if we overdo it, and can make it really hard for us to actually take direct action or be really direct with people. And so it's really good to balance out any type of meditation practice or visualization practice with a workout or with moving or going to live my life, because it actually gives me the space to integrate and digest the meal of that meditation. And it also helps circulate new energy in my field that helps me not feel so stuck, right? Because we only feel stuck when we're not taking steps forward. And when we can work to go for a walk, to dance, to move, to play with others, it actually creates the excitement to help us open us up to new inspiration, new insights, greater intuition that can actually show us how to find solutions in our life rather than just sitting in meditation. And when we do that, is what it takes to be a master, because we're now no longer avoiding life through our meditation practice, but we're stepping into life due to our meditation practice, which is way more hot and sexy. And okay, here it came. I came back. I knew it was gonna come back. I was focusing on the void today. This is the last little thing I want to talk about. I was focusing on the void today, and I was meditating and like feeling my body dissolve into blackness, and I was feeling all this anxiety and worry that I wasn't aware of kind of under the surface. And as I was focusing on dissolving into pure black stillness, pure black void energy, which is the divine feminine, the divine feminine is no thing or nothing, and it's just pure, the darkest night you've ever seen, and it's black stillness. There's no molecules in there. And it's a meditation I try and do fairly regularly, of feeling like just imagining pure blackness underneath my skin, and then I feel my body dissolve and merge with like a clear black universe that's just completely still with no molecules or particles. And I try and feel that through my whole body. I was doing it, I was feeling all this anxiety and worry being wiped away that I wasn't even aware of, that was there. And recognizing that when we feel that what I was feeling was actually kind of like the toxicity in the soil, and becoming aware of one way to clear it would be through expression of some type, artistic expression of writing poetry about anxiety or worry. But recognizing when we align ourselves with the void, it actually helps us feel deeper, and it actually helps us become more aware of what might be in the soil of our experience that we weren't really seeing, because we were maybe not diving so deep into ourselves. And so it's one of the ways that the void can be really helpful, is help us become aware of the patterns, the feelings that might be stuck in us a little bit, that could be influencing our words and actions that we're not even seeing. And when we can attune ourselves to the void regularly, we start to become a lot more aware of what's in the soil, what's in the darkness, what the darkness is holding. And as I was tuning myself to the void today, I actually felt the anxiety and worry get washed away, and I felt a lot better afterwards. And I didn't even know I wasn't feeling that good, or that was weighing me down. And so it's something, if we want to help clear out our soil, a simple way to do it would just to visualize pure black energy with no molecules or particles underneath your skin, and then feeling your body kind of fall away as you merge into a clear black still universe that's just the darkest night you've ever seen. And when you do that and meditate and hold that, you're going to feel a little squirmy, and you're going to feel like you want to get up and stop your meditation. And that's the time to actually meditate for maybe like 5 to 10 minutes longer, because that's when the real healing is happening, when you want to stop, or when you're feeling squirmy. And as I was feeling this anxiety and worry, I definitely wanted to stop a little bit, but it was actually the sitting with it that helped clear some of that out of me. And so I hope that helps. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a great day, and I really appreciate your time and your attention, and wanting to grow, and wanting to hear some insights that might help you in your life, because this wouldn't me offering this, while it feels good to do, is way more meaningful by who chooses to take some of this advice and become better for it, rather than any type of, right. The greatest recognition I get from this is how it actually helps others. It isn't how many followers I have. And so if this was helpful, maybe put a comment of how it might have helped you. And yeah, thank you for watching. I love you guys. Bye.